that. And as you know, you've heard me say it many times, you've heard the president say it many times, it is going to lower costs when it comes to prescription drugs. It's going to lower healthcare costs and energy costs. And it is one of the most historic investment to fight climate change. As we are talking about extreme weather, I've gotten multiple questions on Puerto Rico and what the people of Puerto Rico, our brothers and sisters, are going through. What may happen in this hurricane season. A lot of that is going to be helped by the work that this president has done, bipartisan infrastructure law, again, the Inflation Reduction Act. So we are doing the work. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to work. We've seen gas prices go down for 14 weeks straight, and that, again, is because of the work that this president is doing. So yes, we understand what the American people are going through, but our job, the president's job, is to do everything that he can in his power to give Americans a little bit more breathing room. Go ahead.
Thank you. Great. Can you tell us a little bit about Tuesday's trip to Florida? Is the president going to be going after DeSantis a bit? Is he one of the MAGA? Well, not really in a way, but if you see what I mean. Is he part of the MAGA or the alternative MAGA scene that the president's going after? And also, could you just come back to the president's re-election decision? Because
you like asking me that question, Sebastian.
You were asked this like a few months ago because everyone was going crazy over is he going to? And you said yes, he is. That was meant to stop the whole thing. But
no, I said that. Look,
you said it's way too early.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to answer your question. Okay. I'm at the podium, right? There's a Hatch Act. I have to be very mindful when talking about 2022 and even 2024, which is a worlds away. As you all know, you cover this media cycle, changes every second. So look, the president was clear even during that 60-minute interview, and I've been clear, he's been clear multiple times, that he intends to run. He said that. He said that in that same interview, that he intends to run. I have to be careful as I'm standing in front of you. Don't want to get more into that. But the president's goal right now, as we look at today, as we look at the next coming days, is to make sure that we continue to deliver for the American people. That is why we talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. That is why we talk about CHIPS Act. That is why we talk about bipartisan infrastructure legislation. And not just him. You hear it from the vice president. You hear it from his cabinet secretaries. It is so important to make sure that the American public understands what we have done here these past 19 months, and that's going to be our focus. As it relates to Florida and Governor DeSantis, look, I don't have anything to preview at this time on what the trip will look like. We will share more as we get closer to the day. Look, we have talked about this as well. You know, when it comes to extremism, when it comes to behaviors that is inhumane and cruel, that is what we're seeing from Governor DeSantis. That is what we're seeing in specifically to how he is using people who are leaving communism, people who are trying to get away from political persecution, talking about Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba. They are fleeing those countries, and he is using families, children, and women as a political ploy, as a political stunt. We will continue to call that out, but as far as what that day will look like, we'll share more as we get closer. Okay, Karen.
Thanks, Corinne. Back to Puerto Rico. When the president said yesterday that the federal government would cover the 100% of the cost for the next month of the efforts down there, do you have an estimate of what that cost is going to be?
No, that's a good question. We don't have an estimate at this time, but the president is committed. As you know, you heard him from speaking from New York yesterday. He is committed to doing everything that he can for Puerto Rico. He has spoken to the governor several times. Our team has been in touch with the governor and local officials throughout this time. And so he's committed to doing everything that he can. And this is how he sees his role. He's done this multiple times when we've seen this extreme type of weather, these disasters hit communities. And as president, he's going to continue to be a loud voice in that and use the resources of the federal government to make sure that we help the people of Puerto Rico at this time.
On Iran and the internet, has the administration heard from any American tech companies that will move forward with offering internet services in Iran, and is there any way to estimate how much of an impact that will actually have on the Iranian people?
So Let me go back and just say, look, we are aware of what the Iranian authorities are doing in blocking Instagram and also WhatsApp, as well as slowing down or stopping access to the internet in general, as you all have asking. If accurate, this is shameful, but also not unsurprising. Step in the wrong direction by Iran's government to prevent the world from watching the Iran government crack down on peaceful protesters. That is what is happening here. We continue to work with private sector and Department of Treasury to identify additional measures that we will support and facilitate the free flow of information to the Iranian people. As I just mentioned earlier, the Department of Treasury took action just yesterday, and we will use what is available to us to make sure that there is accountability. I'm going to go back a little bit because I haven't been back. And then I'll come back up.
Thank you. Two quick ones. First of all, on this weather, have we been in contact? Has the U.S. been in contact at all with our Canadian neighbors about what I believe will technically not be a hurricane, but the major storm that's supposed to hit the Atlantic provinces, Canadian Maritimes, in the coming hours?
Clearly, that's something that we are monitoring from here. We would have to check in with our friends at NSC, our colleagues, to see if we've been in close touch with Canadian officials. But that is something that FEMA is continuously monitoring as well. And when we have any updates on that, we're happy to share.
And then the second thing is we're a week away from the end of the government's fiscal year, and is there any reason why anyone should be concerned that there might be a lapse in funding, or is the President and the White House confident that whatever is going back and forth with Senator Manchin's permitting bill and the rest of the CR negotiations, that will all be worked out by next Friday?
So we have, we believe, and I've said this before, there's still time for lawmakers on the Hill to enact a short-term funding bill by the Friday deadline. We remain confident that Congress will get this done, so we can continue to deliver vital services, to your point of your question, to the American people. So we encourage for that to happen. We have continued, I've mentioned this before, to stay in close touch with Congress in a bipartisan way. But we believe we have been here before. We were here just last year during this time, and we think that there's still time to get something done, and we'll call on them to act. Okay.
Great. I just want to follow up again on the World Bank president. You said that you disagree with the comments that he's made, but in terms of having confidence in him or supporting him, there are reports suggesting that some in the administration have tried to oust him. So, given that context, does the White House still support him or have confidence?
So removing him requires a majority of shareholders. So that's something to keep in mind. The U.S. believes the World Bank must be a full partner in delivering on the aggressive global climate agenda, poverty reduction, and sustainability development. Again, Treasury will hold Malpass accountable to this position and support the many staff working to fight climate change at the World Bank. But again, removal will require a majority of stakeholders here. So it is a partnership. That is how we see this. Okay, Peter.
Thanks, Corinne. Following up on your topper, does President Biden favor any limits on abortion?
We've been very, very clear here. Since you're talking about my topper, I was talking specifically about Senator Lindsey Graham.
And your position on his plan is clear. 15 weeks is unacceptable.
I was speaking directly to what Republicans are trying to do.
So
they are calling for a national ban, which takes us backwards. Which will weeks, right? It's a national ban which will take us backwards and will put at risk the health of women. And here's the thing about this, Peter, it's not just national ban on abortion. We're talking about privacy, we're talking about contraception, we're talking about marriage. That is what extreme Republican officials are trying to do. That's what we're speaking to. I'm not going to get into specifics here. I'm just going to lay out what they have said that they're going to do.
Why not get into specifics? The Republicans are saying we don't want abortion after 15 weeks. Why can't you say how many weeks a president thinks the limit
as you know, Kevin McCarthy put out the GOP agenda.
I'm not asking
No,
about Kevin
I'm-
McCarthy, I'm asking
I'm
about Joe
answering-
Biden
I
and his
am- I am
position on
answering-
abortion. How many
Peter,
weeks?
Peter, I'm answering your question. What Republicans are trying to do is take us backwards. They're trying to take away the rights and freedoms of Americans. That's what we're calling out, and that's what we're going to continue to call out. House Republicans oppose a pharmacy bill that would deny women essential medications. As of September, 166 House Republicans have signed onto a heartbeat bill that would decide abortion at the federal level, even though 28 of those members have since said decisions on abortion should be left to the state. And this week, a Michigan GOP official said he wants to ban contraception. So we should really listen to what Republicans are trying to tell us. And that's what we are speaking out against, and that's what we're going to talk about the national ban that Republicans are continuing to push when majority of Americans do not want that.
We are all covering the Republican
okay.
plan. I'm just,
Go
why
ahead,
can't
go
you
ahead.
say how many weeks for
Go ahead,
Biden?
go ahead.
What? No.
No, go ahead. I
No,
answered.
why can't
I
you
answered
say-
your question.
you
Go
did
ahead.
not
Go ahead,
answer my
Courtney.
question,
I
Courtney.
did.
Why
I did.
can't you say,
Go ahead, Courtney.
how many weeks?
I wanted to ask you, the president announced that he was elevating Jennifer Klein to a more senior role. What does that do for her resources, for her portfolio? What's the purpose of doing that, especially when you're dealing with so many gender issues that you've been talking about?
So Jen Klein, who, as you know, is a colleague of mine, and I've worked closely with her as well as our team here, has been leading on the Gender Policy Council since the beginning, since day one, and she has had all the resources available to her. She has worked diligently on delivering the agenda of this president. It is a, as you know, a historic office that deals with such an important issue as we talk about gender rights, as we talk about equality. So I wouldn't say there's going to be any differences, really. I mean, she is really an assistant to the president, as the role, as her new title lays out. She runs an office here. And again, she has had all the resources that have been provided to her. She works closely with multiple agencies across the federal government to make sure that we live up to what the goal of the gender policy is. And so again, she is. We're very happy for her. This is well deserved for Jen, and we are lucky to have her in that role.
You also provide an update. I know the Justice Department had a task force that some of the White House folks were participating on, responding to the Dobbs decision, how you were going to proceed with litigation or whatever it is you wanted to move forward. Can you provide an update on that group's work?
Yeah, we can go back to the GPC and our other partners to get an update for you on where we are.
Just another follow-up on the World Bank. If a majority of the stakeholders wanted to oust President Malpass, would the United States support that?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I've said already that we condemn the words of the president. But again, was just laying out what the process would be, but I'm not going to get ahead of what that process is potentially going to look like. If there is a majority, again, this is a partnership. This is not something that we will just do on our own.
And then in New York this week, did any of the president's discussions with other world leaders touch on the proposed oil price cap for Russia? And can you give us any updates on what was discussed?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't have anything to read out for you on that particular issue. It is something that the president has led on. As you know, it came up when he was in Europe very recently, and it is an issue that we feel that is important in dealing with really giving another kind of blow to Russia. But I don't have anything to read out for you at this time on any further conversations and where we are in that space.
There's videos out there of drunken men in Russia brawling and resisting going to the front. Do you, in light of this conscription order, so do you assess that Putin is going to have trouble producing 300,000 members of the armed forces, or do you think he's going for far more than that? And is he capable of doing it?
Look, I can't speak to what he's capable of doing or not doing, but I can speak to what these acts that these announcement and his speech laying out what he wants to do, right? Whether it's a 300,000 more personnel. Look, again, this is not an act of strength. This is not coming from a place of confidence. It's really quite the opposite. What we're seeing from Putin is weakness. He's been losing on the battlefield. He has not made any gain, as we have known this past couple of weeks. They have not been able to achieve any of their goals, and they are losing their positions again on the battlefield. So what we are seeing is Russia that is scraping for personnel to throw into this fight, and we are seeing thousands of Russians protest against this mobilization, against this brutal war and unjust war that Russian forces are carrying out in Ukraine, and on President Putin's whim, on his orders. So again, this is not a strength or confidence here that we're seeing. This is coming from a place of weakness. It is up to Putin to see what he's capable of doing. But we are seeing from the protests, right? We're seeing very clearly that people are protesting in the street because this war is incredibly unpopular. This war, again, that Putin has started, that Putin put onto the people of Ukraine.
There's a report out of the UN today about potential or alleged war crimes in Russia, and including sex crimes of very young and very old Ukrainian people. In light of what the president has said, calling Putin a war criminal in the past, what is he doing now?
So we are engaging the Ukrainians to learn more about what's happening on the ground. We have been clear that war crimes Russian forces have committed need to be investigated, and that Russia needs to be held accountable. So the recent discovery of mass graves in Izium is horrifying, as are the atrocities Russia has committed in Bucha and many other places throughout Ukraine. We've been very clear about that. We have been working closely with Ukraine on this issue and welcome Ukrainians' perspective on this process, how we move forward. We are also supporting a range of international and national efforts underway to document war crimes and atrocities committed by Russian forces in Ukraine, including through International Criminal Court and investigation through the UN Human Rights Council, the OSCE Moscow mechanism, and the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's Office. We are helping document, preserve, and analyze evidence of war crimes and atrocity through our Atrocity Crimes Advisory Group for Ukraine, the State Department's Conflict Observatory, and the Department of Justice War Crimes Accountability Team. It is past time for this war to end, and it is up to Mr. Putin to end this war. This war was started by the Kremlin. He can end this war today if he chooses to. He can end the brutality that we're seeing in Ukraine if he chooses to. And it is up to him. He can end this today. Gosh, I'm trying to see who I have not called on. Oh, go ahead.
In Ukraine, 2 Americans who were captured while fighting Russia and Ukraine were released this week. They arrived back on U.S. soil today. What involvement did the U.S. have in that prisoner exchange? Is there anything else that you can tell us about that? And has the president spoken yet to either the men or their families?
So I don't have anything to read out on any conversation that the president has had specifically with these two Americans. The United States welcomes the negotiated prisoner exchange between Ukraine and Russia, which includes the 2 U.S. citizens, as you just mentioned, captured while serving in Ukrainians' military. We are appreciative of Ukraine including all prisoners of war, regardless of nationality, in its negotiations, and we look forward to these U.S. citizens being reunited with their families. We also thank the Crown Prince and the government of Saudi Arabia and the Turkish government for facilitating the exchange of prisoners between Ukraine and Russia. We once again reiterate the State Department's travel advisory warning U.S. citizens not to travel to Ukraine, and that those who do participate in fighting in the fighting, they face a significant risk, and the United States cannot guarantee their safety. We've been very clear about this from the very early days of this war. We continue to encourage Americans to devote their energies toward the many other opportunities that exist to help the country of Ukraine and also the people of Ukraine.
On another topic, really quick, the president over the summer was considering declaring a public health emergency over abortion rights. He was also at one point thinking about taking executive action when it comes to Dreamers, and he was also considering declaring a national emergency over climate. Can you provide us with a status update on potential executive actions relating to those items?
We don't have any updates on those particular items, and when we do, we will be happy to share them.
Doreen, what's the President Biden message to the people of Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua that are now on their way to the U.S. border or thinking of coming to the U.S. border?
Yeah, and we have said this before. Secretary Mayorkas has been very clear on this as well. It is a dangerous journey. We understand the political persecution. We understand what the people of Ukraine. I'm sorry, Ukraine. I was just talking about Ukraine. What the people of Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba are going through. But again, these are very, very dangerous. This is a very dangerous journey. We recommend that they don't put their lives at risk. But again, what we're seeing, how they are being used as political pawns, is something that we're going to continue to call on. It is inhumane. It is unacceptable how folks who are fleeing, again, political persecution, who are fleeing communism, are being treated. And that is something that you'll continue to hear President Biden condemn. You'll continue to hear us condemn. What Republican governors are doing is unacceptable. It is shameful. And not only that, it is causing chaos and confusion. And that is not how we fix the system. If we want to fix the system, the president put forth on his first day in the White House a legislative solution, a comprehensive immigration reform to deal with these very issues. In the meantime, we're going to continue to work with our partners and our allies in the region, in the Western Hemisphere, because this is indeed a new type of migration that we're seeing. We're seeing a jump from those three countries by 121% in just a year. And that is a different scenario that we're dealing with. So we're going to, that is causing havoc across the Western Hemisphere.
I have a follow-up to that. President Biden said last week that it's not rational to send these people from Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua back. Does that mean that President Biden is in some way, or the White House, someone encouraging them to come to the U.S.?
What the president is saying is that these folks, these mothers, these children, these families are leaving a country because of communism. They're leaving a country because of political persecution. And he was saying that they should not be used as a political pawn by Governor DeSantis or any Republican governor. That's what he was speaking to. He was calling out the inhumane nature of the way that they were being used because of for a political headline, because of someone's political future. And so he's going to continue to call that out. It is, again, I'll say this again, it is inhumane. You hear the president talk about this many times throughout his career, not just as president. It is important to treat people with dignity. It is important to make sure that, that folks who are fleeing communism are not treated this way. And so we'll continue to call that out. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,